Shalom, friends. Welcome to another Shear in Talmud. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet. You can find my site on www.lovingkindness.co. We're learning Talmud Berachot, blessings, and we're currently on page Daf Vav Amud Base, that's 6b. We're right at the end. And I'm just going to do a quick revision of the previous teaching that we were taught, and we'll follow on immediately onto the new subject matter. So here we go. For Omar Rabbi Chelbo. Rabbi Chelbo taught the following. He said, Omar Rav Huna, he said that Rav Huna said, Kol Adam sheyesh bo yirat shamayim. Every person that has fear of heaven. What does it mean to have fear of heaven? Basically means that a person realizes that there is God in the world and that he has a responsibility towards God. To the degree that a person acknowledges God in his life, in the things that he does, and includes God in those things, to that degree he fears heaven. For example, if a person says, I'm not going to eat kosher, then basically what he's saying is that even though there's a mitzvah to eat kosher, he's saying to himself, I don't really believe that God expects me to be kosher, and therefore he really distances himself from God, or he pushes God away from himself. And in that way, it shows that he doesn't really have the fear of heaven that is required. He might have fear of heaven in other areas. For example, he might not steal because he realizes that God is watching. The camera is filming him, and he's afraid to steal lest he be caught. And it may be God will be angry with him. So he has yirat shamayim with regards to stealing. Or perhaps he has fear of heaven with regards to murdering somebody. To that degree, he has fear of heaven. He wouldn't murder somebody just in case God might take it out on him at a later stage. But he feels that if he would eat non-kosher, or he would break Shabbos, or he would not fulfill the laws of family purity, God would surely not feel any displeasure at this person. And he doesn't really believe that God is really interested in whether or not he eats kosher, whether he fulfills the laws of family purity, whether he keeps the Shabbos or not. It doesn't interest him. As far as he's concerned, God is not interested in these silly things that man makes up, so to speak, in this world below. Of course, man doesn't make any of these things up. These are God's directed laws. And of course, the person who acknowledges it, and the person who says to himself, Shabbos is a serious matter. I cannot infringe on the laws of Shabbos. I cannot infringe on the laws of kashrut. I'm eating kosher. Who would think that I'm going to eat meat and milk together? I'll even keep a separation of 6 hours between after having eaten meat and to have a milk product. Or I will be very careful with the laws of family purity in terms of husband and wife relationship, in terms of all the laws of morality, sexual morality, and so on and so forth, all these things involved. This speaks about a person's level of yirat shamayim. And to the degree that he fears heaven, to the degree that he observes these mitzvot, and he acknowledges God in his life. So we say about such an individual that a person who does have yirat shamayim, devarav nishma'im, his words are heard, which means to say that when he speaks out something, people value it because they realize that this is a person who acknowledges God. He fears God. He fears God even in the smallest matters in his life. That he speaks lashon hara, Shabbos, family purity. All these laws are important to him. None are any less important. It is just as important to him not to speak badly about another individual as it is not to transgress Shabbos, as it is not to hurt a person, murder a person, embarrass a person, and so on and so forth, steal, etc. All of these mitzvot are just as important as the next, tefillin and sukkahs and Pesach and eating matzah. Who would think of having chometz on Pesach? We just had Pesach now. Well, a person who fears heaven, of course, is very careful even not to eat this, even to be in touch with the smallest drop of chometz in his possession whatsoever. He's so careful. This is a person who fears heaven. Shene'emar, how do we know that a person who fears heaven, that his words are heard? Because the verse says, Sof davar, hakol nishma, es ha'elohim yira. It says the final matter is that when everything has been heard, the most important thing is to fear God. So we see hakol nishma, everything is heard, et ha'elokim yira, fearing God. One who fears God, also, sof davar means that his words, when he speaks, davar also connected to the word dibur, speaking, hakol nishma, everybody's listening. Everybody's listening to the person who fears God. The Gemara continues. My kize kol adam. What does it mean when it says this is everything of a person, or this is the whole man? Omar Rabbi Elazar taught, he says, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, said, Kol ha'olam kulo lo nivra ele bishvil zeh. The whole world was only created for this person. That's what it means. Ki zeh kol ha'adam. At the end of this verse, Sof davar hakol nishma es ha'elohim yira'ah ve'et mitzvosav shemo ki zeh kol ha'adam, because this is the whole person. What does it mean when it says this? It means the whole world was created for this person. For which person? For the person who fears God. The world and everything in it is for His sake alone. The Gemara continues. Rabbi Abba bar Kahana Amar. Rabbi Abba, the son of Kahana, said, Shakul ze keneged kol haolam kulo. That it says ki ze kol ha'adam, that this is the whole person, is actually coming to teach us that this person is weighed out against the whole world. Which means to say, if you put them onto a scale and you take the entire world on one pan on the scale on the one side, and you take this person and you put him onto the pan of the scale on the other side, Rabbi Shimon ben Azai Omer. Rabbi Shimon ben Azai says, V'omri la Rabbi Shimon ben Zoma Omer. And some say it was Rabbi Shimon ben Zoma who says, Kol ha'olam kulo lo nivra el litzvat lazeh. These are three beautiful teachings. He says that the entire world in its entirety was created only to be as a companion for this person. So we see basically that the whole world is created for the purpose of the person who fears God. And the person who fears God, if you weigh him out against the entire world, he takes one of the scales on the set of scales, he takes one of the pans, one of the sides to himself in comparison to the whole world. And not only that, but all of his words are listened to. When he speaks, and of course the words that he says are obviously godly words of Torah, people listen to him because here is an individual who shows his respect to God, to the creator of the world. We continue. V'omar Rabbi Chelbo, Omar Rav Huna. Rabbi Chelbo said that Rav Huna said, Kol sheyodea b'chavero, shehu ragil yitain lo shalom, a new teaching. Remember, we're learning about these teachings of Rabbi Chelbo. So that is why this teaching is brought in. Another teaching of Rabbi Chelbo who says, anybody who knows that with regards to his friend, that his friend is accustomed to give him greetings, meaning to say that when he passes him on the street and he sees his friend, he notices that the friend always runs up to him as he's passing by and he says, Shalom, he says to him, hello, peace be upon you. Yakdim lo shalom. He should precede the shalom to his friend. Which means to say, if we find ourselves in a situation where our friend is always the person who is greeting us first, we should say, if so, I should be the person to greet him first. Shneimar, how do we know that? Because the verse says, remember, if we're learning the Gemara is teaching us a teaching, it has to give us a proof. You can't just make up statements and suck them out of your thumb. You need to come up with a proof, a valid proof from the Torah somewhere. The valid proof is as follows. The verse says, Bakei shalom v'radfehu. Request peace and pursue it. What does that mean? It means to say that basically our duty is to run after peace, to pursue it. The duty of a person in this world is to constantly be on the lookout for opportunities of bringing peace to other people. You know what one of the best ways of bringing peace to other people is? It is to greet a person and simply say, Shalom, Shalom, hello, peace be upon you, how are you? A real sincere statement of acknowledgement that the person is there. Hello, what a friendly way of opening up a discussion. It's interesting, people who are used to ways certainly of years gone by, perhaps people are not so accustomed to such a behavior today, but in days gone by when we used to lift up the telephone and we answered it, we would actually say, hello, how are you? Hello, this is so-and-so. How can I help you? Today we pick up the telephone, we already know who it is, and we just simply say, yes, or we just say so-and-so, we say their name, or what's happening, or something like that. But the reality is, what we should be working on is the concept of shalom, greeting. If a person gave him a greeting and he didn't return it, like many people are accustomed to do, somebody says to him, hello, or they say, shalom. And the person just simply walks by, doesn't answer. Nikra Gazlan. Such an individual is called a thief. What did he steal? Shene'emar, because the verse says, "Vatem biartem akerim gezelas he'ani bevateichem," and you have burnt the vineyard, the theft of the poor person in your houses. What does that mean exactly? It's very interesting. You have burnt, is you have eaten up the vineyard, the spoils of the poor is in your houses. The only way to steal from a pauper who owns nothing is to rob him of his dignity by refusing to return his greeting. Think about that for a second. A poor man who has nothing, all he really has is his greeting. And he's standing on the street and he's asking for assistance. Meanwhile, we pass him by, and the only thing that he does to us is he says, "Good morning. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am." He doesn't say anything more than that. And we walk past him in disgust. We're upset with him. He's asking for money. Why does he just get a job and do something constructive in the world? Why does he stand there just greeting people as we pass by? Do something useful. Well, here he was doing something useful. At the very least, he was greeting and he was saying hello to you. He was making a statement that tried to make a connection. He was trying to bring peace into the world. Far better, at least, that he says hello than he just puts his head down and doesn't even look at anybody. Here he says, "Hello, sir. How are you?" He didn't even really ask for the money. He's just standing there hoping that people will help him. But at least he has the courtesy. He says hello. At least a person who hears that should respond, and he should say shalom back, if nothing else. If he's unable to give anything more of his life to this poor person than the greeting of peace, then at least let him give him that greeting. Here in the notes, he says that the spoils of the poor is in your houses, and he tells us there's another understanding of this expression. Some tie the transgression of one who does not respond when another extended him a greeting to the verse, "the spoils of the poor," in the following manner. Stealing from the poor, ani, a poor person in Hebrew is an ani, is etymologically similar to stealing one's response, ma'aneh. Take a look at the two words. Ani is a poor person, ma'aneh is an answer, by failing to reciprocate another's greeting. So we see that's the connection between the two. Stealing from the poor, ani, he steals through the ma'aneh, through the reply, through the answer that he gives. So this is a very crucial lesson that we can take with us into life, that whenever we see somebody, the first thing is we should try to greet them first. And the second thing is if they greet us, we should respond. And it doesn't matter who greets us. The point is, even if it's somebody who has nothing of his own, if we don't respond with a greeting, we take something away from him. We are thieves and we are stealing something from him, his dignity, if nothing else. We continue now on to Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. We're now on to page 7 and we're on to the first side of page 7. Omer Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yasi. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yasi. Now here he puts in a note, the background here, that the expression in the name of Mishum is different to the concept that we've been learning about throughout the Gemara. When we see that, it says there, Omar Rav so-and-so, Omar Rav so-and-so. So Rav so-and-so said that so-and-so said. But sometimes it doesn't say that. It says Omar Rabbi so-and-so, Mishum Rabbi so-and-so. What does it mean when it says Mishum in the name of? This phrase, in the name of Rabbi X, is employed to indicate that the one making the statement did not hear it directly from the person in whose name he is quoting it. In that case, the Gemara would say, Rabbi X said that Rabbi Y said, as we've been learning throughout the Gemara, as you can recall, through all our shiurim together. Rather, he heard it from others in the name of that sage. Rabbi Yochanan the Amora could not have heard firsthand a pronouncement made by Rabbi Yosei, the Tana, because there's many years between the two. He only heard secondhand that was what he said. In most cases where one sage quotes a statement in the name of another, there's a generational gap between them. However, occasionally, a student quotes a statement in the name of his own rabbi. The Gemara then explains that he was not present on the occasion when his rabbi made that pronouncement and only heard it from other students. So this is what it means. Omar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Yossi. He didn't hear it directly from Rabbi Yossi. He heard it from somebody else who is telling it over to him that he heard that Rabbi Yossi said the following. How do we know that the Holy One, blessed be He, prays? praise. In other words, he makes a prayer, not that he's filled with praise, P-R-A-I-S-E, but that he prays, P-R-A-Y-S. How do we know that God prays? Shenema, because the verse says, it means I will bring them to my holy mountain, and I will make them rejoice in my house of prayer. What does it mean exactly? Well, the house of my prayer, the base tefilasi, in the house of my prayer. Tefilasam lo ne'emar. It doesn't say in the house of their prayer. Ella lo ne'emar. Ella tefilasi. But rather it says in the house of my prayer, which means what? We learn from here that God prays. So it's an interesting idea. First question that we have to ask when we say that God prays is, well, what does God pray? It's a very strange concept. God runs the world. He's the creator of the world. He makes things happen in the world. Who's he praying to? What's the purpose of prayer? I thought that prayer was all about asking God for my requirements, whatever I need. Well, God doesn't have to ask anybody for his requirements. He already owns the entire world. He owns all of existence. What is he praying? And yet he does pray. There is a certain request that he has. Omar Rav Zutra bar Tovia Omar Rav. Rav Zutra, the son of Tovia, said that Rav said, again, you see the difference over here between these two expressions, Mishum and Omar, that here you can clearly see that he must have heard it from him directly. Yehi ratzon milfanai. May it be my will before me, sheyichbeshu rachamai, that my mercies should overcome es kasi, my anger. God prays, so to speak, that he himself should have a situation that his mercy overcomes his anger. Because it's easy to be angry with the world, especially as a God. One can imagine that God is seeing all the immorality, people going against his will. He's created the world for a reason. People are not following what it is that he wants us to achieve in this world, to bring this world to its ultimate perfection. When Mashiach comes and there's a revelation of godly light in this world that far supersedes whatever we know about, can ever imagine. And so therefore God could become angry. So God says, really, I pray that my mercies should overcome my anger. And that my mercy prevail over my attributes. And I should accustom myself with my children with the attributes of mercy. And I should enter to them within the letter of the law, which is translated colloquially beyond the letter of the law, which means to say that God is praying, so to speak, that his attributes of mercy should overwhelm all the anger that he has to a degree that he only effects mercy in the world. Those who study Chumash will know that when God created the world initially, he created the world in the realm of judgment. Vayomer Elokim, and God said, Yehi or, let there be light. Vayomer Elokim, God said this. The name Elokim refers to God in the attributes of judgment. And only later on does God enter into the aspects of creation, the attribute of mercy with the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the four-letter tetragrammaton name. And over there, he brings in mercy into the world. But initially, God was going to create the world only in an attribute of judgment, in which case, if we did good, we would be rewarded. If we did bad, we would be wiped out. Then God saw not a chance. If that's how the world's going to function, the world is going to be destroyed in no time at all. And therefore, he brought in the attributes of mercy so that whenever his judgment would become too great, the attributes of mercy would intervene and save the world from the destruction that God would desire to bring to his world. So God prays every day, basically, that constantly his mercy should overwhelm and overcome the attributes of judgment, and therefore the world will be run on an attribute of mercy, which is what we all desire. It's what we all need. Here we see in the notes that from here we see that the Holy One, blessed be he, prays. Much has been said with regard to these statements, and many homiletical and mystical interpretations were suggested in an effort to arrive at an understanding. Most commentaries hold that God's prayer is God's request of the individual and of mankind as a whole to turn to him with all their hearts. In other words, if people repent their sins and attempt to break the vicious cycle of one transgression leads to another transgression, they will cause God's attributes of mercy to prevail over his attributes of justice, and even those deserving of punishment will be spared. That said, God's prayer, so to speak, is his wish and request of man. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? But to fear, as it says there in Deuteronomy 10:12. The fact that God's wish is characterized as a prayer means that God is showing his desire and his will, his prayer, that man will be better and worthy of his bountiful blessing. So the idea over here is not that God is praying as if he's going to answer his own prayer, but rather he's praying in a way that he's trying to tell us what he really wants. He really wants us to do good in a way that will cause the mercy to be aroused. Let us not forget, when we do good, we cause a reaction of good from above. In the language of the Mekubalim, in the language of the Kabbalists, they teach the concept that there is an awakening from below and an awakening from above. That means to say that when we wake ourselves up from below in a certain way, we also cause a similar awakening from above, which means to say, if we do good and mercy in this world, that causes good and mercy to be awoken from above. This is called Mayin Nukfin, which known as the feminine waters, also known as Man, and the Mayin Tchurin, which means the masculine waters, or the mud, which comes down from above to below. When we lift up through the good things we do in this world, we awaken attributes of mercy, whether it is on ourselves, whether it is on others, whether it is towards God, then God opens up and awakens mercy to us in this world. When we awaken the judgments against ourselves and against others, let's just remember that also, even against ourselves. If we become too demanding over ourselves, and we even say to things like God, which we are not permitted to do at all, if we say things that we wish that God maybe should punish us because we've done bad, we must remember that by saying those words, we awaken the dinim, we awaken judgments upon ourselves as well. And therefore, we should be careful not to say the words of any kind of judgment, whether against ourselves or our others. We must be aware that the good words we say cause goodness to descend from above to below. And when we speak negative things, harmful things, we cause evil to move from above to below. What we send up from below to above causes a reaction and makes something happen from above to below. And I give a description to all my students. I like to describe the idea that it's kind of like when we go to the fun fair, and at the fun fair they have these games. One of the games that you can play on is where they have a type of a metal disc that rests on a horizontal board, and it's attached to a vertical board which has a bell at the top, and it has a type of a stripe in the middle, and you're given a hammer, and the idea is to strike the metal ball that's on this horizontal board underneath your face below you. And when you strike it, the harder you strike it, it causes the weight inside to be lifted up on the vertical board, ultimately hitting the bell at the top. And if you hit the bell at the top, it rings, it goes bing, bing, and as a result, the owner of the toy has to give you a reward. He has to give you a prize because you've managed to do it. And this is basically what we do all the time. When we do good, it's like striking this ball that sits on the bottom there with a hammer, and it causes a reaction. And the harder that we hit it, the more likely it is that there'll be a harder force that comes down into this world in proportion to the act that we do. If we do good, if we are merciful on ourselves, on others, and everything around us, we bring down the mercy. When we act in a judgmental way, when we speak negatively about people, we speak lashon hara, all these things, that's what we're doing. We're arousing the dinim, we're arousing judgments against them, and as a result, that's going to cause negative things to come down into the world as well. And so therefore, God was saying over here that he's hoping that what we'll do, that's his prayer, so to speak. He's actually praying to us, so to speak. He's saying to us, I pray that my mercy will overcome my judgment. And how will that be? How will it be done? And when is it going to happen? It's going to happen when we down here do what is necessary to be done. When we do it correctly in a way of mercy and kindness, then as a result, God says, I too will overcome my judgments and bless the world with mercy and kindness. Now we continue. Now we're talking about the same idea of prayer and blessing. Here we come across a very beautiful Gemara, very powerful Gemara. We need to internalize every one of these stories. We need to write a book on every one of these stories because it's so powerful. We need to internalize every one of these ideas. The next idea also speaks about this tremendous power. Tanya, it was taught in a brisa, Omar Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha. Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Elisha, said the following. Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha, of course, as we're going to learn about in a moment, was the high priest. He was the Kohen Gadol. And he had one moment a year in which he would seclude himself in the Kodesh Kodeshim, in the Holy of Holies, in which he was able to effect all sorts of changes in the world through the prayer that he would say. This is a very spiritual moment. And in fact, anything that came from his mouth at this point in time would be fulfilled. This was the power that the Kohen Gadol had, that he was in the Holy of Holies, on the holiest day of the year, on Yom Kippur. He was in a unique yichud, a unique a connecting relationship, totally bound up with God, that the words that he would say at this point in time would have such a powerful effect that they would cause the very words to be fulfilled. Whatever he said could make changes in the world to the highest degree possible. No prayer was like the prayer that the Kohen Gadol would be saying when he was in the Kodesh Kodeshim. And so Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha said the following. It happened once upon a time. I went to burn the incense in the very innermost sanctum inside the Holy of Holies. And he says that when he was there, we must remember this is real. This is what used to take place in the days that the temple stood. We know nothing of this today. We don't have these spiritual experiences today. Very rare is the person who can experience such a thing that the Kohen Gadol could experience over here. V'ra'iti, and he says the following, and I read the words exactly as it appears in the Gemara itself, even though there could be questions as to how I'm expressing and saying the actual names involved over here, which generally speaking we avoid doing, but I'm going to say it because we are doing it in the sense of learning the Gemara itself, and so I'm pronouncing the names. V'ra'isi akatriel ya Hashem tzvaot, shu yoshev al kisei ram v'nistar, v'omar li, and I saw Akatriel. Some say that this is the name of a malach. And as I said before, there's a question as to whether or not we should pronounce the names of malachim, of the angels. But some say that it's not the name of a malach in this instance at least, but rather it's a name that applies to God himself. And what Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha is telling us is that he saw God. And then he gives the different parts of the names of God. This part, and then the Yud K part, and then afterwards Hashem, and then Tzedakot. All of these are names of God. So he saw God, and he was sitting on a throne, and it was a very high and exalted throne. He saw God, so to speak. Again, God has no physical image. Don't make a mistake and think that God is some sort of physical image, that he saw some sort of an old man, and he had a beard, and he had white hair, and he was wearing a white garment. He was wearing a glima, some sort of a robe, and now he saw God looking just like God would look. He didn't see anything like that. He's describing his mystical experience in a way that we can relate to it in physical terms. So he says that he saw God, and he was sitting on this exalted throne, so to speak, in physical terms, but all of this is taking place in a very spiritual image, which is unfortunately being translated into our physical world. V'omar li, and God said to me, Yishmael beni, Yishmael my son, barcheni, bless me. Interesting. God, the creator of the world, who created this Kohen Gadol, Yishmael ben Elisha, is asking Yishmael ben Elisha to give God, he the creator, a blessing. Omarti lo, I said to him, this is what Yishmael ben Elisha answers back. Yehi ratzon milfonecho, sheyichbeshu rachamecha iskasecho. Says Yishmael, the Kohen Gadol, imagine if God, for a second, would come to any of us, and in a dream state, he would say to us, give me a blessing. I mean, what type of blessing would we give God? What would we say to him? Many people, for example, take, for example, the idea of the Shemona Esrei. We daven every day, 3 times a day, this prayer that consists of 18, already 19 blessings. And each blessing has a certain angle to it. Now, let's just say, for example, that the men of the Great Assembly never instituted this prayer with the 18, 19 blessings. And they said to us, there's a mitzvah to daven every single day a prayer. What type of prayer would we daven? Some of us would say, please God, give me money. Some people would say, please give me good health. Some people might say, give me children, give me a shidduch, give me whatever it is that they make up in their own heads. But it wouldn't last very long. They would just have kind of this one prayer that went on every single day. They wouldn't really know what to say. So the men of the Great Assembly gave us a prayer which consisted of 18 blessings, 19 blessings, which basically, to one who pays attention to the prayers, to the blessings that are there, will realize that they have encompassed every area of life. Because in their wisdom, they knew what it is that we really need for ourselves. And therefore, they put that into one full prayer. And we can recite it every single day, 3 times a day, never get tired of it, because the things that we need to ask for are mentioned in this particular prayer. Now, the same thing applies over here. Let's imagine that God would come to us and say to us as an individual, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, bless me. What would we say to him? I bless you, God, that you should be what? But look at this. Yishmael, the Kohen Gadol, was faced with this very test. He has to give some sort of blessing to God. What does he say? He said, may it be your will before you that your mercies overcome your anger. These were the very words that God used to pray himself. These are the words that Yishmael gave as a blessing to the creator of the world. What can I say, God? What type of a blessing can I give you? The biggest blessing I can give you, God, is that your mercies should overcome the anger that you have. And your mercy should prevail over your attributes. Attributes like jealousy, hatred, all the different things that a person can feel in himself. God also has those attributes, because we're really getting the attributes from God himself. So Yishmael, the Kohen Gadol, is saying to God, may your mercies overcome all of these attributes that cause harm in the physical world. I mean, think about it. Ultimately, if there are people in the world who have hundreds of billions of dollars, and there are people in the world that even have trillions of dollars, nobody speaks about these things, but there are people in the world that have trillions of dollars. Well, if there are such types of people in the world like this, then why is it that God can't make all of us have money like that, so that we can also buy things? I mean, if there are people in the world that are blessed with 20 children, for example, and a couple get married and they say they'd also like to have 20 children, why can't God bless them with 20 children? God can do anything. But what happens is that God steps in with his attribute of judgment, and he causes that certain people have more mercy upon them than other people, or other people have mercy, but the judgment against them is too much, and therefore they end up having even less. So you find a person who has absolutely nothing, a person who is complete debt, and another person is a multi-billionaire, hundreds of billions of dollars. What's going on here? God can do whatever he wants to, but the attributes of anger, judgment, and so on and so forth, these negative attributes stand in his way and don't allow him to cause the flow to come down into this world and cause a reaction of goodness in a revealed way. So Yishmael said to God, I bless you, God, that you should get rid of, so to speak, these terrible attributes of anger and judgment, so that the mercy that you have should go out to the entire world. Because if the world has mercy, the world will be filled with wonderful things. But unfortunately, there's tremendous judgment in the world. We ourselves understand what judgment is, because we execute judgment on each other all the time. So we know well what's the difference between judgment and mercy. We pray to God that ultimately there shouldn't be judgment. And accustom yourself with your children with the attributes of mercy. And enter into them beyond the measure of the law. Meaning to say, it means actually within the letter of the law, which means to say, don't go out. You don't even have to go out of the letter of the law. Be in the letter of the law. But colloquially, it means go beyond the letter of the law. Even if God, it seems to be, that this particular fellow did something that's wrong and against your will, go beyond it, God. Don't allow the attribute of judgment to hold you back from bestowing kindness, goodness, and mercy in a revealed and manifest visible manner to the person who requires the blessing. The teaching continues. Listen to this. Nobody thought that we can talk to God. Nobody thought we can bless God. Nobody thought we can ask God for the things that we need. How many times do we know it? That, let's say, for example, a person is suffering, doesn't have money, doesn't have a home, doesn't have whatever it is. He asks a friend, he says, help me. And they say, if God is not willing it for you, it's a sure sign that you shouldn't have it. You're evil, you're bad. God knows that, and he's punishing you for that. He thinks he said some very wise words. But look at this. Ishmael is teaching us, an unbeliever, the Kohen Gadol, Ishmael ben Elisha, is teaching us a wonderful teaching. You think that you have to keep defending God? You don't have to defend God for anything. Instead, tell God to bless people with good things, with merciful things, with kind things, visible, revealed, manifest. Why not? And he told God, do that. And how does God answer? Ishmael, who are you to tell me what to do? No. When Ishmael tells him that your mercy should extend and overwhelm, overcome your anger, what did Hashem do? V'ninali berosho. He nodded his head. God said, you are correct. That is the way you talk to me. You talk to me in a way to convince me to do further good in the world. You do not talk to me in a way to convince me to do actions of evil and bring in further judgment. You have to talk to me in a way that brings goodness. So think about it like this. Next time somebody comes up and they tell you their woes and their worries, all one has to say to them is, you know what? I pray to God that he should bless you with good things, with kind things, everything revealed, revealed good, manifest and visible, because God can do it. And then perhaps God will nod his head and he will say, thank you for this blessing that you are saying, because you awaken the forces from below, the man, you wake up from below, the Mayin Nukvin, and you cause me to bestow goodness, the Mayin Tchurin, into the world. The Kamash Malan, and what's this whole teaching here to teach us about? Comes to teach us, don't let the blessing of a simple person to be considered in your eyes as something that is light. Don't let the blessing of a simple person go unnoticed. That means to say, we think to ourselves that if we need help in a certain area, you know what we need to do? We need to find a mikubal. We need to find a big Kabbalist, a big mystic. And the mystic is going to say some magic words. And I put that in inverted commas because there are mikubalim who are outstanding, the real thing. And then there are fake mikubalim who go by the idea of perhaps wearing certain garments and acting in a certain way as if they're in charge. And we think, therefore, that if we go to them and we ask them for blessings, that automatically the blessing will be fulfilled. Well, here we see something interesting. But what about if I went to my next door neighbor and I said, could you give me a blessing for wealth? Could you give me a blessing for a shidduch? Could you give me a blessing? No way I'd ask them. How can they help? No. Even the blessing of a simple person should not be regarded as something light in a person's eyes. Those who live in Israel, I'm going to just share something very beautiful. There is a particular fellow, people know who he is. I'm not mentioning his name at this point in time, but there's a particular fellow who is a teller at one of the big supermarkets in Israel, and he's a Kohen. And when people come to do their shopping at this particular store, after he has rung up all of the details for the person's goods that he's buying at the store, he says, there's a special mitzvah. There's a special mitzvah on at the store today. What's the mitzvah? The mitzvah means a special. It's a special. What's the special? The special is the bracha. I'm a Kohen, he says, and I'll give you a blessing. So, of course, for the most part, I don't know if anybody ever refuses him, but for the most part, I see people standing there, and I include myself, and he puts his hands on you, and he gives you a blessing. A very well-known person in Israel, and this is what he does. He is a teller at the supermarket, and yet at the end of when he finishes up ringing up all the details, he gives a blessing. Let not the blessing of a simple person be considered nothing, like nothing in your eyes. Where do we know from? From Ishmael, the Ben Elisha, the Kohen Gadol. Who is Ishmael next to God? He's nothing. Who are any of us next to God? Nothing. We're all small. We're all nothing next to God. Relative to infinity, every single soul is worth nothing next to this huge cosmos existence of infinity. Yet God said to the simple Kohen Gadol, he said to him, give me a blessing. We learn from this that even a simple person can give a great blessing to a great person. And likewise, I say, don't think that you are any different. Next time you find yourself in the presence of somebody who needs something, don't stop yourself from offering blessings. It's easy to stop oneself from saying anything good and blaming and saying that a person's not deserving. That they can do, because they don't realize that the power of blessing is much stronger. Instead of criticizing, instead of wishing the worst, all one need do is to say, I bless you with the best of everything that you wish for yourself. And who knows, maybe God will fulfill that blessing. Because just as it is that he paid attention to the words of Ishmael ben Elisha, no matter how great he was, next to God, he's still an ordinary human being of flesh and blood. So too will God listen to the prayers that each of us say with regards to another human being. V'omar Rabbi. So let me just see if I read that note. Yes, so we finished that note. Here, Ishmael beni barcheni. He says over here, Ishmael, my son, bless me. The vision is also the object of many interpretations. While some say that Rabbi Ishmael, the high priest, saw only the vision of an angel, says Rav Hai Gaon, most commentaries maintain that this was a prophecy seen by the high priest upon entering the Holy of Holies. The revelation in this vision is not in God's desire for man's blessing, but in the essence of the blessing. The blessing which Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha blesses God indicates that the essence of all blessings which we recite, indicates the essence of all the blessings which we recite. The blessing does not offer praise or thanks to God, for God does not require our praise. Rather, it is a supplication that God will increase the bounty that he bestows upon the world. Blessing means adding to the good that already exists. God's will is to be blessed, meaning that God wills that people pray to him and request that he continue to lead them with loving kindness and mercy. That is what God wants from us, that we are supposed to speak to him in a way that says, God, bring mercy into the world, not God, destroy the world. Now we continue. Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yosi. A new teaching. Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of Rabbi Yosi, where do we know it from? That a person should not appease his fellow man at the time that he's angry. Now listen to this beautiful idea. Another powerful teaching. We think that when we see somebody angry, that the first thing that we need to do is to scream at them back, and then hopefully they'll scream at us back again, and we can scream back at them again and have a whole match of anger, one against the other. Well, the Talmud teaches us over here that the correct attitude is that, in fact, when we see somebody is angry, they're disillusioned, they're feeling lost, sometimes the best response is no response. The response is don't try to appease the person when they're angry, because trying to appease them when they're angry really resolves nothing. Because since they're angry already, all they want to do is to continue the anger that they're feeling already. So if we say anything like, don't be angry, so that doesn't do anything. It's like people say somebody did something wrong. They're depressed. So say, hey, snap out of it. Ah, perfect. You said snap out of it. Boom, look at that. I feel much better now. Thanks so much for telling me to snap out of it, because I feel much better now. If you hadn't said those words, there's no way that I could have got out of my depression. Well, so too, the same thing applies here. Somebody becomes angry. And so we say to the person who's angry, don't be so angry, relax, take it easy, whatever. We don't realize that when a person is angry, there's a lot more going on with the person. And sometimes we need to take an approach that will hopefully resolve the difficulty of the anger, so that instead of them adding to their anger, they'll be able to diminish their anger. Now, again, since the Gemara is teaching us this, we obviously need a proof. Tiksiv. How do we know that? Because it's written a pasuk in the Torah, Panai yelchu v'anichoisi lach. My face shall go, and then I will give you rest. This is referring to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was asking to see God's presence, and at that time, what was going on? So basically, yeah, we see Moses following the sin of the golden calf, that Moses requested that the divine presence rest upon Israel as it had previously. And so God says, my face will go and I will give you rest. What does it mean, my face will go? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, Hamtein li, wait a little bit for me. Ad sheyavu panim shel za'am, until my anger passes by, until the anger of my face passes by, v'aniach lecha, and then I will grant your request, which means wait for me to get rid of the anger. Once the anger passes by and I feel a bit more calm again, I'll be able to grant you whatever your request is. Here on the bottom we see the halacha that one must not placate a person while he is in the throes of his anger. Based on this Gemara, the sages conclude that one should refrain from saying things, even positive things, when he is certain that they will not be accepted by his intended audience. Wow, these are like frightening words, basically, because they're teaching us that sometimes we want to say the right thing to help the person, and the reality is that what we're about to say will achieve nothing. And sometimes the best approach is just to simply keep quiet. This includes placating a person when he's angry. Rather, he should wait until the anger subsides somewhat. And then, of course, once he gets to that level, then he can go to the person and he can say, let's discuss what happened there, what is the best approach, and so on and so forth. Now, the Gemara continues. The Gemara asks the question, and is there anger in front of the Holy One, blessed be He? Does He get angry? That's very strange. God is not a human being. He doesn't need to get angry at anything. I mean, even if the population are misbehaving, even in the generation of the flood, what do we mean when we say that God gets angry? God doesn't have to get angry. He's God. He created the whole of existence. What does He need to get angry for? It's His world. You only get angry when you see somebody is going against you because you have no ability to control what's happening, so you're angry at them. However, if you're God, what do you have to be angry at the situation for? I mean, you created these people as they are. Why are you getting angry? In, the Gemara answers, in Aramaic, the word in, or ein, does not mean there is not, but rather like Hebrew ein, but rather in means yes, meaning God does get angry. The Tanya, as we learned, as it was taught in a Brisa, that God gets angry every day. Says the verse, God is angry every day. There's a verse in Tehillim. The Gemara continues. The Kamazamo, how long is his anger for? Rega, a moment. People know the word in Israel. If you lived here longer than 10 to 20 seconds, you'll know that there's a word called rega. And the word rega actually doesn't mean wait, as people think. It means a moment. A moment. You'll notice people, if somebody's talking and the other fellow wants him to keep quiet already, so he says to him, rega. He doesn't really mean, he doesn't really mean moment. He means wait a second. Rega, wait a second. But the reality is, he's saying a moment, just a moment, just a moment. If one is on the bus and the bus driver slams the door closed before he gets a chance to get out, he screams at the bus driver, Rega, a moment, just a second, hold on, don't close the door. That's basically what the word Rega means. It has many, many translations to it. But the word Rega in its simple form means moment. So how long does God get angry for? Rega, for just a moment. The Kama Rega, the Gemara asks, how long is this thing called moment? Is a moment 10 minutes? An hour? What is the definition of moment? The Gemara answers, Echad mechameshet ribo, ushmona salafim, ushmona me'ot, ushmonim, ushmona b'sha'a. 158,000, 880 and 88 of an hour. So it's 158,888 of an hour. V'zo hi rega, and that is what's called rega. That's the exact amount of time. Rega is it's so short. It's this 158,888 of an hour. If you can imagine exactly how long that is. And nobody, no creation is able to direct at that exact point in time when it is that God is angry, which means to say every single day there is a split moment in time where God is angry. And this is very dangerous for the world, because if one is able to tap into the moment where God is angry and one becomes filled with anger oneself and one says certain things that perhaps one shouldn't about somebody else or about anything, the truth of the matter is that the words go up at the exact moment that the anger of God exists, and God can destroy at that point in time whatever it is in accordance with what we're saying. Chutz mi Bilam harasha. Nobody knows what that time is except for one individual in the world. And his name was Bilam the Wicked. Because we know that Bilam wanted to destroy the Jewish people. He was going to curse the Jewish people. Balak sent Bilam to curse the Jewish people. Why? Because Bilam was a magician. And he knew the exact moment, this moment called Rega. He knew the exact moment when God gets angry. And so therefore the idea was, since he was a magician and he knew this moment, so Balak says to him, since you know the moment, wait for that moment. And at that moment, curse the Jewish people. And as you do so, immediately, the Jewish people will be cursed. Because that's the moment that God gets angry. That's the moment the curse will take effect. Diksiv Bay, because it's written about him, it says over there, about Bilam, V'yodeya da'as elyon, that he knows the mind of the supernal one. What does it mean he knows the mind of the supernal one? It means that he knows that moment when God gets angry. Let's just read this point over here before we go to the next page. What exactly is a moment? A rega. A moment does not denote a specific quantity of time. Rather, it is an expression usually denoting an extremely short, unquantifiable period of time. Therefore, the moment is explained in different places as being of various durations, without it being considered a contradiction. Consequently, a distinction must be drawn between the imprecise moment and the moment used in the precise mathematical sense, as it appears in the Talmud for astronomical calculations. The moment, rega, is 1/76 of a chelek, which is in turn 1/1080th of an hour. A moment in that sense is 1/180,080th of an hour. A variant text of the Gemara establishes a rega at 0.044 seconds, which is close to the above calculation. So the Gemara says over here that Bilam knew the mind of God. Very interesting. He knew the mind of God. Who knows God's mind? The Gemara continues, Hashta da'as bento lo hava yada. Hold on a second. The mind of his animal, he didn't even know. Da'as elyon hava yada. But the mind of the supernal one, that he did, of the Most High, that one he did know. Meaning, what does it mean that we said that Bilam didn't know the mind of his donkey? Well, the donkey was behaving in a certain manner, a certain irrational manner. It kept on stopping and forcing Bilam not to continue with his journey and all these things. So he keeps on kicking the donkey. Eventually he wants to kill the donkey and so on and so forth. Everybody knows the story that the donkey is preventing him, and eventually the donkey starts speaking to him, and he doesn't even realize in his stupidity, basically, he doesn't even realize that he's talking to a donkey. He thinks he's talking to a human being. He's lost touch of reality. Well, if Bilam didn't even know the mind of his donkey, how can we assume that he knew the mind of God? Ella, but rather, we don't mean to say that he knew God's mind. Ella melamed. It teaches us that he knew how to direct that exact point in time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He, becomes angry. This is what Bilam knew. Not that he knew God's mind, that he knew how God works and runs the world, but rather he knew the moment that God gets angry. And so he was going to use that time period that as the moment would come, he would curse the Jewish people and his curse would be fulfilled. Now we see in the notes that the Holy One, blessed is angry. There are, of course, many verses in which the wrath of God is mentioned. However, the question was if there is a fixed period of anger each day with no direct connection to specific transgressions. Okay. So, and that means the Amalahu Nabi Israel, and that's what the prophet said to the Jewish people. Ami Zachor, my nation, remember, Na ma ya'atz Balak Melech Moav. Remember what Balak, the king of Moab, advised. And then the pasuk continues as we read over here in this English translation, which says, my nation, remember what Balak, king of Moab, advised, and how Balaam, son of Beor, responded from Shittim to Gilgal, so that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord. What is meant by the statement, so that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord? Omar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, Omar lehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said the following to the Jewish people. Olhuli Israel. This is what he said to the Jewish people. You should know, how many righteous things I did for you, that I was not angry in the days of Bilam the wicked. What does that mean? It means to say that at the time that this whole episode was taking place, and Bilam already knew the time that God gets angry, he could have cursed the whole Jewish people, he would have destroyed the Jewish people in a second, if it were not for the fact that God did an act of kindness with us. Why? Because if I had become angry, then there wouldn't have remained amongst the Jewish people, amongst the enemies of the Jewish people, which is really just a euphemism for the expression which means the Jewish people, a remnant or a survivor, which means to say that God had hidden his anger from the world at that point in time. And as a result of that, Bilam was not able to curse the Jewish people. That's why he was having such a hard time trying to curse the Jewish people, because he couldn't find the moment that God was getting angry, because God wasn't getting angry. So he didn't know what to do. Why wasn't God getting angry? Because of God's kindness. He would not allow himself to be in that state of anger so as to allow that Bilam could ultimately curse the Jewish people. And that is what Bilam said to Balak. Ma ekov, how can I curse? How can I condemn? Lo kabo el, because God himself doesn't curse. He doesn't condemn. Uma ezom lo za'am Hashem. And how can I get angry? How can I curse when God is not cursed? And how can I condemn who God has not condemned? Melamed, it teaches, shekol oisam hayamim lo za'am. All of those days, God was not angry. He hid his anger from the world, and as a result of that, Bilam was not able to curse the Jewish people because he could not tune in to the moment that God was angry. We're going to stop over here. We're at the end of the Shear. I thank you very much for joining me. Here we are on page 7a. We're moving along steadily, and I'm Eliyahu Shear from Kesed Ve'emet. You can find my site on www.lovingkindness.co. If you have enjoyed the Shear, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell button to be notified of future Shiurim. And feel free to be in touch with me by visiting my site. Come and check out what we're doing and become a partner in all of these activities. We'd be delighted to include you in something that we're doing. Be a partner with us. Be in touch with us. If you have any questions about Torah, any questions about the Gemara that we're learning, or anything that you'd like to talk about in terms of life. Now we're going through this challenge, difficulties of this coronavirus. Many of us don't know what to do. We find ourselves lost. Be in touch with us. Let's find a program that we can work with to keep ourselves busy, focused on positivity, and to grow further together in all the things that we're doing. Don't forget, teaching is done on a personal level as well as group shiurim, and you're welcome to join us. So please be in touch. I'd be delighted to be in touch with you, and I look forward to giving another shiur. Do share this video with your friends and family so that we can get this message out to more people. I look forward to another shiur, and I hope that you'll join me soon. Wishing you everything of the best. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.